Yeah, so what you're looking at in this video is a Bridgeport mill that I recently refurbished. I bought it last year, like around May time frame at an auction, and then I drug it home. I used this guide to renovating the Bridgeport variable speed milling machine. This guide is pretty comprehensive. I'd recommend it to anybody that is doing any kind of refurb on a Bridgeport mill. It has a lot of illustrations and it's a complete walkthrough that shows you how to tear the mill completely down and rebuild it. There's also some tips in there on components, high-wear components that are prone to damage and need to be replaced, and there's some other tips and tricks. I did consider making this a do-it-yourself video. I looked on YouTube and saw that there's a lot of videos already out there on how to refurb a mill, how to do all kinds of repairs on it. And frankly, I'm not really an expert on any of this, so I didn't want to cloud the airwaves with additional information. So what I'm going to do instead is just really tell the story of what I did, and I have some interesting pictures to go along with it. I am going to put a video up of how I did all the wiring. I dropped some circuits into my shop and used a variable frequency drive to power the motor. So I get into some of those details because there's not a lot of information out there on how to do that. So I'll provide a card with a link to that video as soon as I compile it. This is a picture of my rig. I rented a trailer from Sunbelt Rentals and hooked it up to my truck, and this is a picture that I took at the rest stop on the way there to pick everything up. It was about a 4-hour drive to get up there. By the time I got it up there, it was like maybe 10 in the morning, and basically they got me loaded up right away. They used a forklift to get it on. The mill was palletized, and I picked up a couple extra or additional items. It took me probably an hour just to tie everything down and get everything ready for the long drive back. This picture showed the machine tied down. You can see that nice big pallet that they put it on. Right behind it is a large stack of Bosch extrusions that I bought, and I got a couple sets of speakers too. So this is a picture of the whole rig after I backed it into my driveway. That parcel that you can see right there on the right side of the table, that's the DRO. That I had to ratchet strap that to the table. Here you can see me, I'm undoing the straps so I can take the pallet off the trailer. I use a pallet jack to lift the load up. I lifted it up about an inch or two. That way if it started getting away from me, I'd be able to drop it and set it back down. You can see what I did is I resituated the item just aft of the two wheels there, and then there's a jack screw that I'm unscrewing right here in this picture. Basically what I did was undo that, and it allowed the trailer to recline, and the entire load just basically skidded down on the hand truck and landed in my driveway. I got pretty lucky. I was agonizing about this pretty hard and how I was going to get it into my shop. Here you could see the mill in the resting place where it was stationed for several months as I worked through the refurb process. So in this video I'm just testing to make sure that the motor works, everything powers up, and everything functions fine before I started tearing into it. I didn't want to tear it down and try to rebuild it only to find that it didn't work. I guess that would, the concern was that it adds some mystery whether it was broken I got it or whether I broke it in the process of trying to fix it. But anyway, so I plugged up the VFD and it powered right up. So after initial test, I got right to work taking the head off. The first component I worked on was the head unit. I loaded it off with a engine hoist and set it down on my workbench and just started going to town, tearing parts off of it. Like I said, I followed the manual that I'll drop a link for later, and it gave some pretty good instructions on where to start and the sequencing of taking everything apart. So this is the motor I pulled off. It's interesting how dirty all these components were. I mean, they were absolutely caked with soot and just I guess I don't know what it was. There was in all the air passageways and cooling vents for all these components. There was probably up to a quarter-inch thick, just greasy accumulation that had kind of built up over the years. I can't imagine what the mechanics that were running this mill's lungs look like after 30 years of service. Here you can see the fan. To my point, I mean, just this whole thing is just caked in grease. In this picture, you can see the engine cover. There's quite a bit of accumulation on it. It was pretty dirty. All these parts came off fairly easy, though. This shows, I think this is inside of one of the belt housings. But yeah, it was pretty nasty. I probably used 5 gallons of acetone and denatured alcohol scrubbing all these components down. I went through several boxes of gloves and paper towels just trying to clean everything up. I feel pretty good about it now, though. Everything is pretty clean. In this view, you could see kind of an explosion of parts. This is all the upper belt housing, the motor, and all that business. I went ahead and took the lid off the motor just to look inside and see what was in there. It's pretty interesting. This mill was made in 1980, and so everything seemed to be in really good shape. I cleaned that motor off. Those fins were caked, and so I don't think that we were getting very good cooling on that motor prior to that clean job. Yeah, so by the time it was over, I kind of had parts just strung out everywhere. I eventually had everything kind of situated in a tote, and I started grouping fasteners in plastic Ziploc bags by component, just to help keep organized so that I wasn't like digging through a big bucket of screws at the end of it trying to match stuff up. So that worked pretty well.